Tom DuBois, thanks for joining me for this special election edition of Behind the Headlines.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So just so the audience knows, these videos with you and the other Palo Alto City Council candidates are intended to give voters a more well-rounded understanding of who you are and who the people are who want to lead the city for the next 4 years. So we'll be talking about your life and your experiences, some people who've meant a lot to you, and maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way.
Sounds good.
Okay. The big picture, of course, is that you're a serial tech entrepreneur and you've been a city council member for the past 4 years. But I'd like to start with your upbringing in Eastern Ohio. Now, to me, it sounds like you had a pretty idyllic, sort of free-range childhood, the kind that everyone wishes that the more kids had these days. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up in Cortland, Ohio?
Yeah. So it's northeastern Ohio.
Okay.
I always have to zero in. It's kind of near Cleveland, near Youngstown, but kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. A really small population.
Yeah, it was about 5,000 at the time.
Okay.
Both of my parents were in education, and basically, particularly in the summer, you kind of leave the house in the morning and come back at dark, and had a lot of time on our own, which was fun.
Yeah.
I would say I was fairly studious. I kind of enjoyed school. My mother being a teacher, I was reading from an early age, and often got in trouble at school for reading books while the teachers were teaching. And a couple of times I would be reading and they would call on me and I would give the answer, and then the teacher would be a little frustrated.
One of those smart Alex.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think my teachers were pretty understanding. I certainly had several that were mentors to me. And I got into my fair trouble at the same time, so my fair share.
Yeah, so I'm curious about some of the teachers who had an influence on you. I'm wondering what it was about them that struck you or that stayed with you over time.
I think they just challenged me in different ways. So I took Latin for 3 years in high school, which is not terribly useful, but...
Can you still conjugate?
If I had to, possibly. But so it was a very small class. I think the teacher got to know all of us pretty well. And so it was really, it was probably kind of more than just a Latin class, I guess. And she kind of kept tabs on us. And the band director also, I think, really got to know everybody. And in the summer, we'd go away for a week and stay at a local college to get ready for football season with the band. Wow. So literally band camp.
Taste of freedom.
Yes. And then I was really into math and science. So my physics teacher, he was an awesome teacher, and I just really enjoyed his classes.
That's neat. Yeah. As far as relatives go, I think you said that your grandmother was a big influence on you. Can you talk a little bit about who she was?
Well, both of my father's parents emigrated from Italy, and there's a large Italian population in Pennsylvania, northeastern Ohio. So, again, kind of taste of freedom. I would spend a week with my grandparents kind of from an early age. So I have a brother and a sister, and so it was a chance to kind of be an only child for a week.
Oh, so they didn't come with you?
No, we would each take separate turns.
That's nice.
But both my grandparents were hardworking folks. My grandfather worked in steel mills in Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
My grandmother grew up through the Depression. Was was always very conserving of everything. She was a great Italian cook, and it was just fun to be able to go stay with them.
That's neat. Now I understand that she had a huge influence on you in terms of the career that you eventually ended up in, because she bought you something when you were in 7th grade?
So this was the age of the personal computer was just coming out. I think there was the Radio Shack TRS-80 was out.
Classic.
And yeah, and she helped my parents get me one of the first IBM PCs, which again I was learning how to program, and I got a lot of mileage out of that. took it to college, where I studied computer engineering and computer science.
Yeah. Well, speaking of college, you strike me as an overachiever because you didn't just do one major or two majors. You did three majors.
Yeah.
What on earth were you thinking?
I mean, they were highly related majors, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But I went to Carnegie Mellon in electrical engineering, and I knew I wanted to go into engineering. I didn't really know what, and electrical engineering was the most difficult program to get into, and so I applied for that, thinking I could transfer out if I needed to. And so I did a triple major in computer engineering, computer science, and mathematics. But a lot of the computer science courses apply to the computer engineering and also to mathematics. So I think it was sophomore year in college, I interviewed for a startup in California. And I got the job offer and loaded up my K car and drove from Pennsylvania to, actually it was in Southern California, to work at this startup. And that really changed, I think, the trajectory of my life. I really got the startup bug.
What kind of startup, what kind of business did they do?
It was a bunch of Caltech guys who basically did engineering design work for hire. So they would just work on lots of different cool projects. They did special effects for like one of the first Star Trek movies.
Oh my gosh.
They'd worked on some video games. And then back then it was these mini computers, the DEC. And so they had done some products for that.
For a college intern, I imagine that's hugely impressive, all these kinds of projects that they're doing.
Yeah, and it wasn't very big companies, so they gave me, especially this, I went back there second year, I basically had my own project, and I got to design a product from kind of beginning to end in the summer. So it was a lot of responsibility for an internship.
Sounds like it sealed your fate.
Yes, I loved California, and I liked the kind of the freedom of the startup. And I thought I wanted to start my own company, and I wanted to have a lot more say in the product design and kind of the product strategy piece. So I went to business school really with the idea of studying entrepreneurship and kind of rounding out my background. Because the other thing I saw at these startups, it was almost all engineers, was just kind of some of the gaps that were missing and some of the challenges they had.
Yeah.
And I thought business school would help.
Okay. Yeah, maybe leaning a little too heavy on one side and not getting the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. Now, I know that you were working and doing a lot of travel, or you were in a program in which you were moving every 6 months. Yeah,
after business school, I don't know why, I thought maybe I should get some big company experience. So I took a job with Dun & Bradstreet in their corporate strategy group. And the job was really to work with the headquarters of their various divisions around the world, trying to solve major problems. And so for the next 2 or 3 years, I moved every 6 months. And I lived in Tokyo, I lived in London, I worked in Milan, Italy, New York, Chicago, Boston, and also some smaller places like Westport, Connecticut, and Dunedin, Florida, which is where they do the Nielsen TV ratings. So, so Nielsen is owned by Dun & Bradstreet at the time. Yeah. So after that, you actually did found a company. I'm going to jump to that, if you don't mind. Sure. That's a pretty big decision to make. It's a big risk. Yeah. Can you kind of talk us through how you made that decision? Yeah, so while at Dun & Bradstreet, I actually was in business development, investing in startups. And I knew I kind of wanted to get back to California, and particularly Palo Alto. And I invested in a startup that was out here. And eventually I left D&B to actually join a startup that spun out of one of those companies in a VP of Biz Dev role. But I was talking, again, kind of the reason I went to business school is to start a company, and this was the beginning of the .com boom. And I just kept talking to some of my friends, and we decided to go ahead and start a company.
Wow.
So,
what was that company doing? What was the field?
so we were doing, basically it was a product search engine that would let you compare features of products. It was kind of like a digital consumer reports. And we were actually the first company to actually license data to consumer reports. Little side note.
Pretty cool.
And we got nominated for a Webby in Best Search. We were up against a little company called Google that year. So we lost, but it was great to be nominated.
We're talking like late 90s here? Or early 2000s?
This was 96, 97, 98. So I was CEO of the company. We grew to about 80 people. We raised a bunch of venture money. We actually had a bunch of enterprise sales, which actually helped when the .com crash came. I think all of our competitors went bankrupt. We survived, but I ended up having to lay off like half the company. And we refocused as kind of an enterprise software company.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a certain temperament to be in startups. To me, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And you can't get too high, you can't get too low. I mean, so there were some real highs in that experience and some real lows.
So out of your career, are there lessons that you kind of learned along the way that you carry with you today?
I'm sure there are millions of them.
Any ones you want to share?
That's a really broad question.
Sure.
I mean, some of what I said already, I think, how you deal with the highs and the lows, not taking yourself too seriously, because something like the .com crash can just come up and whack you.
Right, totally out of your control.
Right.
Yeah.
And also kind of balancing, work, home balance. You can get very consumed in startups, and
Sure.
So, coming out of that, my two kids were born kind of during that time, and so transitioning into the video game industry, I was consulting for a while as well, which gave me some time at home, and I started like volunteering in the kids' classrooms and coaching sports and things like that. So just kind of staying centered, I guess.
Yeah. So let's talk about your kids for a second. So one is, they both went through the Palo Alto school system. One is still at Gunn, and one is off in college?
Yes. Correct. So my son's a senior, mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And my daughter's a junior at Gunn this year.
Yeah.
She's a setter on the volleyball team.
Nice.
They have a game later tonight.
Okay. And you're a big booster of the band, is that right?
Yeah. So so I really think music is a great outlet in school. There's a lot of academic pressures here.
Yeah.
So my son was in the band. My daughter's in the choir. I really like the music programs here in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was president of the band boosters and just help support them while he was in band.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the pressures. I mean, do you see the same kind of all-consuming nature of academics that we've been kind of bemoaning in Palo Alto, or do you see some? I
think it's easy to get
changing?
Caught up in it. I mean, I think a lot of it's on the parents. We really tried to create a low-stress environment, and some of it's self-imposed. My kids might get caught up in kind of what their friends were doing and want to take more AP classes or whatever it is just because other people are.
Yeah.
And we would really talk to them about that and, just make sure it's something they're really interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the right reasons.
Yeah, not just doing it for the resume or the college admissions.
Right.
Yeah. On your website, you have listed that you're a member of the St. Thomas Aquinas Parish, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to find out, is faith something that has been with you for the entirety of your life, or is it something, relatively recent?
Yeah, no, I was brought up Catholic. My father was, he was a principal and a superintendent, And then when he retired, he actually became a deacon in the Catholic Church. So, he had always been pretty serious about it. And growing up in that environment, I think religion was I don't want to say expected. It was just a lot more common. So, I went to Sunday school every Sunday, and we raised our kids Catholic.
Yeah. What is it about the spiritual tradition that I think resonates with you the most? What do you find the most meaningful out of all the various precepts and values?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think religion's fairly personal, and as it kind of relates to the city council, I believe in service to others, and kind of back to the startup lessons as well. Just kind of being humble and just caring about others.
Yeah. So when we think about society today and our community, obviously everyone's concerned about how fractured relations are, whether it's political parties or just different parts of the country not understanding each other. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on maybe where we're at, and do you have any thoughts about the pathway forward for whether it's Palo Alto or the broader society?
The area I grew up in is pretty economically depressed. It used to be kind of a strongly Democratic area that's kind of shifted to Republican. It's kind of purplish, I guess. I think there's just this huge divide in the country where we don't really understand each other as much as we used to. I think economics are a huge part of it. So this part of Ohio, I think, has some of the highest unemployment in the country. I think it had the highest opioid deaths in Ohio, the county. Wow. It's very different than here, right? Yeah. And one of the things I've been thinking about, we have this Sister Cities program, and they're international cities. It's like, what if Palo Alto had sister cities in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah.
And Google has started a program where they're trying to spread technologies to kind of cities in the Midwest and the South. And I've talked to Joe Smitty a little bit about, could we do more of that in Santa Clara County? So I think kind of trying to find those ties so that we're not kind of these almost two separate countries.
Well, I want to close just by asking you about your thoughts about Palo Alto. You are running for city council again, so I'm sure that there's a lot that you love about this city, and there's also things that you want to change about this city. So this is also a broad question, but I wanted to give you the chance to just talk about why it is that you're running and what it is that you love about the city.
Yeah, I mean, overall, Palo Alto is a fantastic place. We think we do a lot of things really well. We have low crime, we have good streets, we have amazing kind of utilities that are both kind of innovative and cost effective. And I've really enjoyed my time on council. I think I've learned a lot. You kind of go into it with a particular point of view. So I think I've developed appreciation for a lot of what we do, and I still think there's a lot more to be done. I've gotten involved a lot in water issues and water recycling. I'm really proud of the fact that we transferred some of our unused water allocation to East Palo Alto. We're getting money from Santa Clara to create purified water from our recycled water. And so I just want to see some of these projects through.
Was water something you were interested in before getting on council?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then starting the campaign, you kind of look back at what you did 4 years ago, and I think I've delivered on a lot of what I said I wanted to do. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think with me, it's kind of what you see is what you get. But I think we're in the midst. We have a huge infrastructure pipeline we're trying to get done, and just realizing how hard it is to actually get things completed. I really want to keep the eye on the execution of those projects. We have 2 police stations, a fire station, bridge over 101, a couple of parking garages.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think it's important that we kind of see those things through. I think we made a commitment to the citizens to do those projects. I'm very happy about our new city manager, but we have a lot of empty positions right now that we need to fill. So it's an interesting time. It's always something new coming up in Palo Alto.
Good for someone who likes to study and learn and keep on going.
Yeah, and again, a lot of variety, so it's hard to get bored.
Great. Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining me. I've really appreciated hearing about your life and the things that you've learned. So
Great. Well, thanks for having me.